Good morning, everyone. How you all feeling? No more jet lag, excited. Big day yesterday, huh? Raise your hand if you're more confident, more certain, more excited about the US property market now as a result of seeing it yesterday. So much more confident. Let me ask you this other question. Who's not as confident about the Australian property market after seeing houses yesterday? Okay. It's a sort of double thing that happens as you go, Okay, now I'm still certain, when we talk about the Australian property market, you've seen my views on that. I've always been a big fan of it, and I've suggested that it's not going to grow as much. Our growth in population, etc., is keeping our market from crashing and keeping a ceiling under it, so we're very fortunate that way. But you can see how expensive Australian real estate is compared to world standards now. It's some of the most expensive real estate on the planet. And then when you see the total opposite of that, remember the US market was similar. Their prices had always risen pretty much, and they were overconfident in their property market, and we'd seen the disaster that created for them. Obviously, they did things differently that we haven't done in Australia. We're fortunate, we have a much stronger banking system. I often joke, one of the, the top 4 banks in Australia all rank in the top 10 most profitable banks on the planet. Did you realise that? So there is an advantage to having banks in Australia that make a lot of money. Okay, they're much safer. Okay, if they're not making money, then you've got a risky banking system. So think of that when they're making their record profits in Australia and New Zealand. Hey, that's a bonus. At least our housing market's more secure. So the US market, now for many of you, I know when I went through the experience, you hear about the media of the US market and different prices, etc. I think you probably found the experience I went through. Once you get out there in the suburbs, you get out and walking through properties, it all of a sudden goes from theory, is that true, to reality. And you start to get comfortable and go, you know what, this is actually real. This is not just hype. It's not just talked about. There's real houses. And some of the prices, who was pretty amazed with some of the houses in Buckeye in particular? Who likes Buckeye? Let me get a show of hands. Obviously there was condos you looked at, and then there was in-between houses that, you looked at a couple that were unrenovated, is that true? Maybe cheaper houses. And then you looked at maybe some better quality houses, say Buckeye, etc. Raise of hands, who thought, I'm just going to give some feedback, what was most popular? The quality type houses, who liked those? Okay, probably, almost everyone. Who was most impressed with the in-between houses? Maybe the, yep, okay. And who was more interested or thought the condo type price was more, okay? So who liked everything? Okay, some of you like, I don't care, just let me know. So so most of it, obviously, the quality, because obviously you have a comparative reference point to the quality houses. And now some of you were talking to yesterday, you want even more quality houses, in other words, a higher price point. And we're going to work that out, see if we can get some of that for you as well. Because we do forget sometimes in Australia, looking at properties at $500,000 or $600,000, and then here we think, well, if something's $150,000 or $200,000, that price point's really expensive. But we sort of forget the comparison. So mostly because you can compare those sort of homes out in Buckeye and those sort of suburbs back to Australia. Now, it was pretty amazing when you think about that. Some of those were $80,000, you remember. And in Australia, in a suburb of a major city, $80,000, well, we can't even get the land, even half the land or a quarter of the land for that. So who is much more confident that they're well below replacement value as well? You see that, it's like, obviously it is cheaper to build over here than in Australia, but still, these things, and that's what we talked about the other day, is where you're going to have more certainty in the US market. One of the reasons why Phoenix is a target for us, of course, is because these properties are available such low prices to what they were. And I'm always confident when I'm investing, if it's something's below replacement value, I have a higher degree of certainty. Making sense? So it was good to get that out there, get through them, have a look around. Now, some of you, remember when we talked about the other day, many of us, when we want to look at properties, are we looking from an emotional viewpoint? And how would this be like if you were living in this house? Or are we looking from a strictly numbers viewpoint? Numbers. We should be looking for numbers, is that true? But who found themselves that sometimes not always looking at the numbers, but looking at other things? Who found that to be true? A few of you, okay. Majority of women in the room, okay. Women in particular will gravitate towards, maybe this kitchen could be rearranged. I'm not sure about this scratch here in the kitchen. Not sure about that. We sort of forget it's at $88,000, and in Australia it costs us $488,000, but that scratch, I'm just It's just bugging me, The kitchen, really, why do they put it that way? Maybe they should add a window here, above the sink or something. Do we start getting that way sometimes? Okay. So we just got to always remember that. I mean, as I talked about, you got to see properties. I'm comfortable a lot of times buying properties sight unseen because you're going to get your building inspector report. That's an absolute must. And you trust that it's there. Okay, but the main thing is obviously the numbers are critical. So today is effectively showcase day. So what they're going to do later, we're going to go through 50 properties in detail up on the screens. So you see a picture of the properties, you saw a sampling of them yesterday, obviously, picture of the properties, and then the numbers. So then you can be making your notes on the numbers, and you're looking for a particular criteria. Making sense? Now, you'll have your different criteria. Some of you are focused predominantly on rent. You want high rents, and therefore you might want to be, you're going to go for the cheaper properties because you can generally get higher rents. In some cases, is it true? Others of you focus more on capital appreciation. Is it true? So capital appreciation, you're going to be tending more towards the higher quality properties, the higher end, because you've got potential greater capital growth, and you've still got rentals. Some of you are going to go, well, I also like that market because why? I feel I'm going to have a safer tenant. I'm going to have a higher quality tenant in a quality suburb. Making sense? Others of you like, well, I'm restricted by budget. Therefore, yeah, I'd like a house out in Buckeye or whatever, but at this point I can only afford a condo. Making sense? So you're going to have your different criteria based on that, and that's up to look at. Now, of course, and then some of you want a higher end thing, they'll work with you, the suppliers ongoing, to help you with that. Now, obviously, the main goal for most of you is at least get the process of one property under your belt, because then you know the process, and then it's much easier to do the second, third, even if you can't do your second or third until you're back in Australia. I know some of you you won't be happy unless you leave with 2 or 3, and that may be possible for some of you, but the goal is at least that everyone wants one, at least gets one. Making sense? Is that fair enough, everyone? At least get that out of the way, and then your second and third for those who are here to buy more than one property. Fair enough? I'm going to go through this morning a checklist because some of you have been talking at different questions. There's still an element of confusion at times, which is understandable. You've been taught a lot, gone through a lot, and sometimes it's hard to assemble all the information. What do I need to do? I talked about yesterday, or the last few days in particular, about the turnkey system. We talked about and we understood the idea that what's more important here now that we've got the properties that they're already going to be renovated, okay, and they're already going to be tenanted. And that saves 80% of the work. So you can just focus on, you're all familiar with the Pareto principle when I talk about, let's focus on the 20% of effort that will get you 80% of your results, okay? Let's not get caught up in the 80% of effort, having to deal back and forth with renovators and waiting for tenants and all that time-consuming stuff that's only getting you 20% of the result. We don't want to waste that because you'd rather put that 20% of effort in and getting a second, third, fourth property and have a better result than all this time and admin where your mind goes, this is just too difficult, I'll just stick at something simpler. Making sense? So the turnkey system for property is one thing. Let me go through another turnkey thing today. So there's a turnkey on the property. Jot this down. And which you understand is turnkey meaning you purchase, you effectively get a key, turn it, the house is done. Okay? Renovate it, rent it. You don't have to do anything more, property manager, titles, inspectors, all done. So the other turnkey, what I want to go through today, and this will alleviate some of the sense of overwhelm at time, or how do I know what to do and get all this stuff organised, is the turnkey service. Jot that down. So the turnkey service relates to this saying, how do we make it as simple as possible? Our role at 21st Century is obviously predominantly being an educator, but also to provide services so you can get the result. So part of that has been a learning experience to say, how do we make it as simple as possible in the shortest period of time as possible to get a result? So I'm very big on, jot this word down, optimization and minimization. Jot those 2 words down. Optimization and minimization. Simply meaning, how do I get the greatest possible result with the least time, money, and effort? Now, some people say, doesn't that mean you're lazy, Jamie? Well, to some degree, yes. Who's heard that sometimes the key to success is to be lazy? Who's heard that at times? Now, what it means is it doesn't mean lazy in the normal sense. It means that if you, for instance, one of the reasons I wanted to become wealthy technically is so I didn't have to work hard all the time. You could say that's technically I was lazy, I didn't want to have to work hard all the time. That's one of the reasons I was driven to become wealthy, so I had choices. But the other way is saying, a lot of people have this, if you work really hard and you work 18 hours a day, then that's success, or I'm going to be successful. And my question would be, if it takes 18 hours a day or 16 hours or 10 hours to do something, then if it can be done in 10 hours, it can then be done in 5 hours. If something can be done in 5 hours, there has to be a way it can be done in 3 hours. If something can be done in 3 hours, there has to be a way it can be done in an hour. Does it make sense? That's my belief system, that's my thinking. Therefore, in my life, I'm able to run a dozen companies, have charity projects, have a group of farms, be involved in a lot of different things, travel the world. I also have a speaking career, write books, have publishing companies. Now, I don't say that to impress you, but impress upon you. I have to do all this, and I still have time, and I work less than the majority of people. Does it make sense? Yet other people have just one job and can't keep up and in overwhelm. Does it make sense? There's a different way that we organize things in our brain. There's a different way that we make things happen, get our ability to get things into action. It doesn't mean any system is perfect, but it just means that why I'm able to do that is because I'm into, one, optimization and minimization. Does it make sense? That's my key focus in everything I want to do. Now, when we look at, say, U.S. property, the same thing. We want to be able to maximize our result and minimize our time, money, and energy so we can get things done quicker. So one of the reasons what we've worked on this is to develop the turnkey service. So a lot of this weekend's been to educate you and give you lots of choices. So you can just, if you want, just go and do everything yourself. Or if you're like, I don't have enough time, if you're like me, I know when I sat here in January, taking notes, etc., I'm just like, well, I don't have time to learn all this. I just want to know the fundamentals, know that I can do my own due diligence, and I want everything else done for me. Does that make sense? So to help you with that, I'm going to walk through a checklist this morning, just so everyone's clear, and you're going to write out your own checklist that way, because if I just give you a piece of paper and say, here's the checklist, it hasn't really sunk in. If you have to write out your checklist, then you're going to know the whole process. Now, for some of you, you've got the process down pat. Some of you are like, what happens here? Building inspector, how do I do this? What about the titles company? Who organizes that? Contracts, deposits, how do I get all this organized? Insurance, etc. So let's walk through a checklist. And so what I'm letting you know, though, is it's part of a turnkey service to assist and do most of these things for you. So just on that, I'm just going to mention a few things. When we first started this process of US properties, of 21st century members coming to the United States, we told the initial group of peoples that it was a test and system and we'd get the bugs out of the system. Now, the advantage for you guys, this is, what month are we in? May? Okay, so you're the fourth group to come through. It's probably, in hindsight, you're probably better off being in the fourth group and not the first three. Does it make sense? One, because we've modified the system to have new selection criteria, different demands on suppliers, that it has to be turnkey. Why? To eliminate 80% of the workload when you go back home for you, for the suppliers, for 21st century, etc. So that's a lot easier for everyone else. Okay. The other thing is the improvement in the services. What we've found in the past is often the biggest challenge I face in business for myself is I have a certain expectation of value, certain expectation of level of service, of customer service. When you deal with third parties, sometimes third parties have different values and different levels of standard of customer service. So the greatest frustration I've had in any of my companies is predominantly when dealing with third parties, because often they don't deliver to the level you want them to. Now, that can be because there's not a perfect world. No company is perfect. Some people think successful companies are perfect. Now, Richard Branson would be probably, who would agree, is probably the most successful entrepreneur on the planet. Is any one of his companies perfect, yes or no? Even if you're a raving fan of Virgin and you fly on Virgin Airlines, some of you would have flew on V Australia, is that true? Even though it's one of the most successful airline companies in the world, one of the top 10 brands in the world, Virgin, do things go wrong at times with Virgin, yes or no? Okay? Do you sometimes get pissed off? Okay, whether it's Virgin or Qantas or particular Jetstar or Tiger. Who's flown Tiger? Okay. Now, there's different levels of customer service, isn't there? If you've flown Tiger in Australia, you get the feeling that they don't really give a shit about you. Who's had that experience? You know, they don't even have the intent of wanting to do the right thing. They don't care because their motto is, people will fly with us anyhow because we're cheap. So we don't have to provide customer service. They have to provide counselling for their staff who get abused all the time, okay? Because I used to think Jetstar was bad. And then Tiger come out and Jetstar, you realise it's not too bad. Or if you fly in American Airlines, not all of them, but some of them, you think, oh my God, we bitch and complain about Australian Airlines, right? Or New Zealand or something. But in America, some of the airlines are atrocious. Absolutely. So when you have the contrast, you realise, my God, this isn't too bad. So I would always say, in my personal opinion, I'm a big fan of Virgin, so I'd have Virgin as one of the best quality airlines in the sense, simply because Richard Branson's motto is that pretty much all planes are the same. True? They're a cylinder flying through the air. He says the only way to make a pint of difference is really by the way that you treat people. True? So even if you're not a Virgin fan, you'd probably give them credit. In most cases, you say at least they have the intention of delivering a better service and being, you know, friendly to you, down to earth, and making sure you have a better time, which is something more than you can't say that about all airlines. Fair enough? Okay. So my point is, it doesn't matter with dealing in any business, etc. There is always going to be challenges. Customer service is never going to be at the level you want, but it's all about the truth is in the what. Jot this down. The truth is in the result. What we have to train ourselves to do, because the greatest challenge in life is that what stops a lot of people getting a result is they let little things distract them and put them out of state. Instead of saying, you know what, it's not a perfect world. Let's build those bridges. Let's get over them. But let's stay focused on what is the outcome we're after. Let's get that outcome no matter what. Making sense? We have to stay focused on the outcome. What is your outcome? And you wrote that down when you started this event. And then you sometimes go through fears, especially if you don't have as much money as other people. It's like, well, I want to get at least one property, or I'd like to get two. And then like you're going through, can I do this? Can't I? Do I have to get creative? Can I get there? But if we stay focused on the result, then you go, okay, why am I putting myself through all this late nights, all the working, etc., learning all this stuff? Because the end result is I want to achieve this. Does that make sense? So when you're going through, it can seem a little bit difficult. It can seem a little bit painful. So what I want to help you with today is go through and highlight most of this can be done for you. Okay, you have your choices. It's up to who. Different service providers you use, I don't particularly care. Our goal at 21st Century is say, let's educate you how to do it so you can do it yourself. Let's also provide the service so if you don't want to have to do it yourself, most of it can be done for you. Fair enough? Okay. So what we did is that I'm not, in a lot of my companies, I'm not intimately involved. I'm pretty much, I'm the face of the company. A lot of people know who I am, etc. And there's a lot of companies I had that I would spend zero time in. Okay. Others I spend more time in. In all my companies, I spend the most time in my least profitable company. Okay. But that's because my passion is education. I spend less time in other companies that actually are more profitable. But sometimes people say, well, Jamie, that's probably why they're more profitable, because you're not involved. Okay. Like, yeah, it's right. Well, there might be a point to that. Okay. But sometimes if we're passionate about something, we'll spend more time in it, even though it's not getting the financial return you would maybe in other companies, because it's what you love to do. Where in other companies, great, they achieve a result, but they're not like, you're not as passionate about them, so you're not involved in them, okay? So I don't always know the details, but one thing when I know they set up the US, I always like to monitor feedback. So here's what I suggest you do. In any 21st century company you ever deal with, if you're not getting the level of service you want, just email the customer support or whoever you're dealing with and just ask for this email or whatever be passed on to Jamie. Because you'll find if they know it's going to get to me, or somehow get it to me, you'll get a different level of service. Does that make sense? Okay. It's the same thing I tell some of my staff. If you're not getting something from a particular staff member or getting the result you want, just CC me. Because when a different staff member sees it CC'd to me, not that I read 1,000 emails a day, but just the way that nature, they know, shit, Jamie's going to see this, they better get it sorted. Does that make sense? Okay. I ask that also because I like your feedback. Because when you're at the top of an organization, you don't always know what's going on, what level of service or what's going on at the ground level. Okay. One thing I learned, I was an entrepreneur of Richard Branson, is he loves going on the planes, etc. And he'll walk up the aisle and he will talk to the passengers. And what he's saying, his little notepad, he's asking for feedback. And that's where some of the best ideas for Virgin, why they become a leader, is that direct feedback from the passengers, simple little things they could change. Where if he was completely removed, like a typical CEOs of large companies, they don't even walk the public streets. They don't even get, they're in almost a false world, a protected species. And they sort of lose that touch. Is that true? So that's why I like getting out at seminars and getting to meet everyone. So I want to get a chance to chat to you, but I can get feedback and we can look and say, okay, how do we improve things? So what we've done with the US service is say, how do we dramatically improve it? Because I haven't been happy with some of the feedback in the past. Now we know some of the feedback has been the problems created by not being turnkey property. Okay, so obviously you guys, you miss out on all that drama of renovations and all that sort of stuff. So that was one of the improvements we made. We also wanted to improve the level of customer support. So instead of suppliers aren't designed, different property suppliers as customer support teams to deal with what you call retail clients. Your retail investors, that makes sense? They're wholesalers. So they're used to going and sourcing property and offering it to wholesale networks. Because we as a group, okay, as a group of wholesalers, does it make sense? Okay, so they're used to dealing with a group as opposed to individuals. Because if there's a group of us and one central point of contact, we can keep that in order, that process, the logistics, etc. But if there's 60 individual of us emailing into one, and then you just create an overload. So what we did one of my goals is to make this as simple as possible so you get everything done. So when you leave here on Wednesday, pretty much when you're buying a property, all you'll have to do is simply transfer your money through the Forex that you're offered, that AFEX or however you want to transfer it, and your deal's done. You don't have to go back worrying about renovations, worrying about extra paperwork and all that stuff. It's pretty much done before you leave. So you're in that headspace, you get back, because otherwise you get back getting busy, etc. And then if you have to be dealing back and forth to the US, different time zones, something that could have been done here in 5 minutes can drag out to 5 weeks when you're in Australia. Who's following what I'm saying here? And then you get annoyed, they get annoyed, it just gets frustrating because it takes so much more time and effort for something that can be done quicker. So what we originally did is we approached a company, some of you have seen Property in the USA for Australians. They've been a separate company in the marketplace, sourcing property for Australians and also Kiwis in the marketplace. And we originally entered into a joint venture with them to help us improve our services. And then we decided for them to be incorporated into 21st Century and effectively become a division of 21st Century. So some of you have been seeing the logo of Property in the USA for Australians. So they're basically in the process of being integrated as a division of 21st Century. The work that they've been doing is working with suppliers, etc., different ones, to be able to put all this together. So first of all, and it's going to lead into going to the turnkey system. I'm just going to invite up here. Some of you had the chance to speak one-on-one with Annetta. Annetta runs that company, and now be a much more closer division of 21st Century. And without her, she's going to be contacting her team, is going to be supporting you ongoing after this process. Also, this wouldn't happen without them. Okay, the amount of effort and sleepless nights that they put in and to put all this together, because you could imagine the intricate logistics behind this beforehand and afterwards. It's not an easy thing to do. It's actually a huge thing to do. So I want to just quickly bring her up so you know who she is, you know who you're going to be able to contact, the face behind that, etc. when you get back, and her contact details. So you know you have one central point, any questions, etc. It'll flow through Annetta's team, etc. And she can make it happen with any other things that you need to know about. So can we please give a warm welcome to Annetta Gorelli.
Hello.
It's on, yeah.
Are you sure? Hi, everyone. Briefly met on the bus yesterday, and I had the opportunity to speak
Is that definitely on? Yep.
To speak to some people one-on-one over the last couple of days. As Jamie mentioned, 21st Century Education has given us the opportunity to become a division of the company. It's an amazing opportunity because as a company, they do opportunities for their clients where they provide options, opportunities and education. And over the last couple of days, you've received a lot of information on different areas to do your due diligence on different building inspectors and what are LCs and different processes. But at the end of the day, we do all of this for you. So it's as simple as once you have a look at a list of properties that you're interested in and you come to us and share your thoughts, we provide you with all of the paperwork, we provide you with all of the contracts, the forms, and we deal with you directly, and we are your point of contact until you purchase the property and then get the opportunity to speak to property managers. And so it's not as complicated as it may have seemed over the last couple of days, and it is quite a simple process. I'm glad that you guys had the opportunity to come and see the process that we do follow and the due diligence that we take, because from now on, once you have the opportunity to go online and have a look at other cities and other places that we do in the future, you can be reassured that we have the best options and deals that we can possibly put together for our clients now, and you can be confident that the due diligence is there. But within your folders, you've got extra information on different companies and support and inspectors and anything that you need to make sure that you're comfortable also. I'm really excited.
Thank you, Annetta. Give her a big hand. Can we? On Tuesday, we're going to be going through some more content with you, and we're going to be talking about some diversified markets, etc. And then I'm going to talk about, because a lot of questions you have, okay, some of you here to get 1 or 2 or 3 properties, but what about in a month's time, in 6 months' time, want to buy more properties? The good news is a benefit you have being on this tour and not on the previous tours is we will be releasing that for you. We'll go through that Tuesday. The whole system of how you can acquire more properties simply. It's going to be as simple as possible, but basically you'll be able to sit at home on your computer and updated properties will be made available to you, okay? It's going to be incredibly simple. Because you've already gone through the process and got your first one, got your LLC set up and bank accounts, of course that's even easier then for you guys. So we're going to go through that on Tuesday. That way you know, not only can you get an outcome while you're here, but ongoing you'll be able to get that outcome, and we'll keep it really simple. And Annetta and her team's a big part of that, because 21st Century, remember, deals with a dozen different companies. You're speaking to someone just in customer service in 21st Century, they'll be able to direct you, but they're not going to have the intimate knowledge about US property or what's going on. Does that make sense? So that's why you've got that additional, support team there for you. They know what's going on. They're working with you guys, and that way you can get a better level of support to answer your questions and moving forward. Originally, when the team at PD, I wasn't intimately involved in the beginning, but I monitor and see what's going on. So intimately what they come up with is the idea of a 7-year, or sometimes it was 10-year, 2 different guarantees. Let's walk through that now. One was a rental guarantee, okay, and one was a 10-year capital buyback guarantee on properties, okay? So they were designed as leading-edge concepts. They were designed from the Australian team and brought to US suppliers and negotiated with particular suppliers to say, here's what we would like. We would like to add an additional service to our members to give them additional peace of mind and certainty. Especially when people on the other side of the country, they're not sure about the US market, etc. And especially up front, before you know nothing about the US market, you need more peace of mind. You're like, okay, if I can get a buyback guarantee, that sounds like, wow, gives me peace of mind. If I can get a rental guarantee, peace of mind. Now, the reality is that when we... charge his phone. Sorry. So those wondering, Warren's still around? Yes, he is. So where was I up to? Yes. So I'll be honest with you, here's what happened. The reality is for the first 3 tours is that when it was all offered, in the beginning, it was like everyone's like excited about it. But once people saw the market, once they got out and saw properties, and once you saw, let's say talk about the buyback guarantee. Once people are seeing properties that were, say, $250,000 at their peak, that they can now get for $75,000. The idea of a 10-year buyback guarantee, because they had to pay an additional, it's like basically you're buying insurance effectively, an additional fee for that. The reality is, guess what? How many people do you think took it? Didn't take it. Because it's a little bit like insurance, but insurance you don't necessarily need to have. Now, obviously with your house, you'd insure your house, okay? Because in case it burns down and gets wrecked. But it was more of a peace of mind. A lot of people wanted to know there was an option that was there beforehand. But once they got educated about it, no one took it. Now, the challenge was to be able to work with suppliers and convince them to do something like this. It costs money. So they want to charge a premium for that, okay? So then it's like, well, then all that work went into making it available, and then no one used it. Same thing with the rental guarantee. Okay, so here's how the rental guarantee worked. With the rental guarantee, previous suppliers, what they would do, now this was negotiated with some property management companies, okay? Not all would do this, but some were happy to do this because it worked in their favor anyhow. It basically worked like this. You would get paid... you get a rental guarantee. They would guarantee 70% thereabouts of your rent. But if you took the rental guarantee, you get 70% of the rent, and they get the other 30% for guaranteeing it. Does it make sense? So they would guarantee your rent and say, we'll guarantee your rent. So even if you had no tenant for a month or two, you're getting guaranteed, but you're guaranteed at 70%. In other words, it's another form of insurance, but fairly expensive insurance, really. Because what they say, okay, if we're going to take on the risk and manage your property as a particular management companies will negotiate it for that period of time, we will do it and we'll guarantee your rent at this level, but for that, we're going to take 30% of your rent. 20, 30% of your rent. Okay, does that make sense? Now, guess what? How many people took it? No one actually wanted because they're like, okay, it's there, but I'm happy just to do it. Now, some other suppliers just won't do it. Okay, some other suppliers, you can ask Tyler, he basically will say, you know what, my belief is this, I know my property's rent, I know I can get tenants, I don't need to offer guarantees, I can deliver my service. So he says, no, I don't need to do it because I know I can deliver. Who's following what I'm saying? Okay, so in some suppliers, we just don't have that available now because we're basically, also what Annette and her team do is they go in with suppliers and they're into crunching suppliers. Does that make sense? Basically saying, we're not an individual buyer, we're a group, and develop long-term relationships. If you do good by us, if you give us bigger discounts, then we will develop a long-term relationship. Because if people based on a long-term relationship, they'll go, okay, we're going to do volume, so we can go and source volume, and we can take less margin because we're going to pick it up in volume of transactions. Does that make sense? And that's part of the buying power. As this system's been working out and as more and more 21st century members come through. Now, our ultimate goal is, because I'm into minimization, okay, maximization, part of that is automation, is that we're looking after this to make this service simpler, where obviously I've told you you'll be able to just buy off the internet. Okay, pretty much. A lot of this will be done in Australia for you. So the content, you won't have to fly to, and future people won't have to fly to the US. They'll be able to go and just learn all this in Australia and be able to do it all there, just to make it simple and more automated for everyone. Okay, so that's how the rental guarantee worked. And the reality is, people thought that's great to have there, but no one took it because effectively you're getting certainty by giving away some of your margin. When others go, okay, I will take the uncertainty. Okay, because I'm pretty certain the tenants are in place, etc., and good property managers. So obviously you have the choice of property managers you use, okay, in most cases. But if you've got good property managers, they know what they're doing, and if the place is already tenanted. See, some of the things what you've got to watch if you're just buying through an internet or through anyone that you don't know is sometimes what they will do is, when we say cheap properties, you can go and buy a cheap property. So, but if you're not there to see what it's like, it's been ripped out, gutted, copper wires are missing, etc. Mainly because a lot of people, when they've foreclosed, they're so bitter and pissed at the banks or whatever, they will leave the house, but they'll strip it. Okay, they'll just strip and gut, what they call gut the house. Okay, the other thing that will happen is some companies out there will do rental guarantees. Okay, but they're basically what they'll do is they'll sell you a property, and there is actually no tenant. But they say there's a tenant and they pay you rent for 2 or 3 months. So you think there's a tenant in there, and then after 2 or 3 months, you don't get any more rent, and it never was a tenant. Does that make sense? The other things that can happen, the horror stories in the US, is if you're just a one-off buyer, because this is one reason I agree with mainstream media, say the average person buying in the US is fraught with danger. Because imagine if you're on your own, you're uneducated, let's say you're just average person, you don't have the education, and you go, I'm going to buy US property. You're either going to have to go and fly over here, do all the work yourself, go and find people. And if they're not educated, they're going to get ripped off for sure. There's some cases, though, with, I'm trying to remember there's one classic horror story. Where I was up to before that? It'll come back to me. Getting ripped off, I'm just trying to think of the examples. Yeah, there wasn't a tenant. It'll come back to me. I completely lost where I was up to.
Wasn't there a story where someone actually just bought a block of land where they actually built their house on it?
There's probably some of those. But anyhow, there's stories of where they will, one, there is no tenants, okay? It happens. Or here's the other thing that can happen, is what they will do, some people know you're from Australia or from a foreign country, they know you can't just come around and check on the house every week. They will pocket the money. The often dodgy rental agents will just pocket the money and not pay you. And you're like, well, where's my rent? And then you got to chase it up, and they know you're in another country, you're not going to spend the money on legal fees, etc. And you can get ripped off. In other words, in Australia, you can get ripped off in any country, but in Australia, there's a higher level, so there's a certain level of ethics, and New Zealand will be the same, smaller countries. There's maybe a higher value on ethics as people know each other. In bigger countries, or often in foreign countries, there's a lot of people that just don't care, and they'll just rip people blind. We know that to be true. So there's some of the individual horror stories that people go through. Mainly because it is, if you're not educated and you don't know a lot of things, it is difficult. And if you're just an individual, they know they can take advantage of you. Where it's different if you're working as a group of people and develop relationships, and longer term relationships, so obviously you can have a lot more protection. Okay, there's no guarantee in everything, but you've got a lot more protection. Okay, make sense? Okay, so here's what I want to do is I want to go through the checklist. Let's create a checklist so everyone get clear on the process of starting and to buying and closing your property, and then be able to then repeat that pattern as many times as you want. Knowing the first one is the hardest. So, checklist. What do you think is the first thing you need on your checklist of the process, which you've already done? You got to open a bank account. Let's say that's probably going to be, which is high up, that's probably going to be number 2. Let's just create this. You can have your own checklist, okay? What I would put as number 1, which you've already started and you're pretty much done, I would have number 1 is get educated. Is that true? That's where your process has actually started, back in Australia than here. First step, get educated, which would be the same for any strategy. Then your next step, okay, you want to buy a property. The next step you did was open a bank account, okay? So some of you yesterday, just getting that open was probably, who was glad you got it open, okay? Some of you going, is this going to happen? It's going to take, I haven't had lunch yet. Don't worry, I was there opening another bank account as well. Open bank account. So you can tick, you've done that, you've done that. Of course, now opening additional bank accounts would be a lot easier. I could have just opened it from Australia, but the fact that I was here and they already had it pre-set up for me, I just went down. It took me 2 seconds when I was eventually got to the desk to just sign 2 spaces, and it was done. My bank account here was, checkbook, everything done, okay? Because once you have a relationship with them, you can just email them, email Tim or whoever you're working with there, and they'll just do it all for you. So future bank accounts, piece of cake, you've got a relationship started. Now, the other reason we started that is so you're building up a credit history with an institutional credit history with Wells Fargo, and they are keen for business, so their business is going to be based on they want to loan you money in the future. So they have an incentive to try and have that make it possible sooner rather than later. Okay, that's what they're working on. Okay, what would be the next step? What else do you have to do now? What else have you done? Some of you done? I'd say open up your LLC. You can buy in your personal name, but our recommendation is don't buy US property. You can contract in your personal name and change it later, but obviously buy in an LLC. So LLC setup. Most of you have already done your paperwork for that. So Tyler and Ben, I spoke to them. They're going to have your LLCs pretty much set up by Tuesday. That's the plan. So you have all that set up done before you leave. Okay, those who haven't set up an LLC yet, if you want to do that, if you want to use these guys, you can. Make sure you get that paperwork in today. Whoever else you're using, get your LLC set up. Some of you already have it set up. Make sense? Okay, so most of you have ticked that box. What would be a next step? What else do we have to do? You've got to look at property, is that true? You've got to look at property. So you started that process yesterday. You got out into Phoenix, you got out in the suburbs, you started looking at property. So most of you do that now. Obviously, after morning tea, you're going to look at more properties. We're going to go through 50 property examples, okay? So you're going to look at more property and you know what to do with. So you're going to be looking at property. Then the next step would be what? Before we go into that, I'll just cover some of the things here. LLC, now the other steps in here that some of you have been doing is some of you setting up a self-managed super fund, true, in Australia, so you can use your super money to buy an additional property. So in here, when the LLC is set up, you're also setting up your other structures that you haven't already, self-managed super fund. Some of you already have a self-managed super fund. Some of you are setting up company and trust structures in Australia to do it or already have. So there's a few other things in here that you have or going to get set up as well. You're speaking to Warren or etc. Some of you asked about US tax lawyers, etc. You got to December to really worry about that, but we'll have that turnkey as part of the turnkey service, okay? Obviously, there's US Central if you want to use them for that, or Warren's putting a package together for US tax lawyers, so you can, if you want to use 20th Century Accounting, they can handle everything and they'll just outsource it for you to a US tax lawyer. But it's no big deal yet, you've got a bit of time on that, okay? Just for handling your LLCs, etc., it's fairly simple. Look at property. So when we're looking at property, we're going to say, what is our criteria? Is it emotional investment or is it numbers investment? So you've got to say, what are the things you're looking at? Obviously, you're going to look at price range, subject to what you can afford, okay? And I'll talk about finance in just a moment, but without finance. So cash, your line of credit, your super funds you've got, to what property range you can afford. So price of the property. What I look at is what its previous high was to what it is now, okay, in the peak of the market, because that gives me an idea how much of a discount, how far it's come down, and how much potential bounce back. Now, I don't expect it to bounce back to its peak high, but I expect there's a potential to bounce back at least halfway back up, which is getting close to replacement value in the future. Okay, that's what I'd like to see happen. No guarantees, but at least we can get that bounce up, and that's what we're looking for. So seeing what the previous highs were for the property gives you an indication of how much it's dropped down, and those figures will be on the screen when you go through them. The other thing, what else are you looking for in your criteria of property? Tell me. Location, yep. So they'll have the map so they can remind you, well, this is in Buckeye, or this is in Mesa, this is in Glendale, this is, wherever, okay, in Phoenix, so you can know the location. You go, okay, yeah, we drove through there, I remember the area, okay? It's this type of area, or this is closer to the city, so forth. What other things are you looking for in your property selection? Rental yield. So you're going to look at the gross and the net. So in US, they only ever refer to as net. We've had them add the gross, because in Australia, we go gross, and also we look at the net. Is that true? We also like to know what the gross yields are. Okay, so we can get a picture here and a picture here. So they've got to put both figures in, the gross and the net, because net's important as well, because in the US, one of the things you'll hear people go, oh yeah, but if they only cover gross yields, there's a lot of expenses, okay? So it can be in some properties that the gross and net, there's a substantial difference. You need to know both, okay? But obviously that's what you're looking at. You know the higher the price of the property, generally the lower your rent yield, okay? The lower, the cheaper property, you're going to get higher rent yield, okay, but you're probably not going to get as much capital growth, and you're taking, I guess, a risk premium because you're dealing with a lower economic, social economic client, okay, as a tenant. What other criteria would you look for in property? I guess, would you be looking at the condition of the property? You want to make sure, obviously you're going to get a building inspector, that's an absolute must. So you're looking at the overall condition, so that's not, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. Anything else? Price, rent, peak, previous high, suburb, location, condition. You pretty much got the things you're looking for, okay? You might be adding to it 2, 3 bedroom type stuff. Yep, we'll just take a couple quick questions.
Just, I looked at the square foot feet.
Yep.
I don't know if there's the same restrictions on lending here in the States in smaller places as there is in Australia.
Yeah, like in Australia, if you have those really tiny apartments, those really tiny one-bedroom apartments, there's lending restrictions. The banks don't like them. In the States, it's not exactly the same. In the States, they're pretty much lending restrictions on anything, okay? So, but not normally in a normal market, normal credit market. I don't know exactly, but it's not as much as in Australia, okay? Because there's a lot more condos here, those smaller condos. Where in Australia, we like much more space. In that article we looked at in the first day, they were talking about how one of the things that's happening with US homes is that in the past it was all about getting bigger homes, and now it's going the other way. People are going to go to smaller homes, cheaper, better value, etc. So there's a different trend where I think that might happen in Australia as well. We've gone the big backyards, etc. Now it's starting to come. People have less land. They can't afford as much. They have smaller space. Okay, so the next step will be select your properties. So you look at properties, you've got to then make a decision. So when we go through the showcase, I'll get them to go through as slowly as possible. So what you basically be doing, what we're going to get you to do, which is a good process anyhow, is going to go through 50 properties that are available. So you're just going to, as you go through them, you're going to create your own ranking 1 to 50. Okay? Now you mightn't get all the way up to 50, but at least you're going to need at least your first 20 choices. Okay? Because you may say, I want that. If you only choose one and say, that's the one I want, okay? When we are after lunch, when we go through the process where you actually get to select your property, yeah, you might want that one, but so might 20 other people, okay? And you've only selected one out of your 50 that you're interested in, then you may not even get that chance because it could be gone. So to make it fair, you've all been ranked in order, okay? So after lunch, when it goes through the process, it'll be in order. So whoever's on the top of the ranking, okay, gold members, and when you first join, it starts there and goes all the way down, okay? So it'll start there and everyone will have the chance to go all the way through. So for some of you, unfortunately, some of the properties you might want, if you only select one or two that you're interested in, could be possibly gone. So you need to rank, say, 1 through to 50 as an example. It's a good process to go through so you can work out which properties suit your criteria, okay? So when it comes to your chance, hopefully the property you want most is still available. Make sense? Okay, that's just the fairest way to do it. Now, the goal is that everyone has at least the opportunity to at least get one. Okay, I know some of you are restricted on finance, etc., which I'll talk about in just a moment. But that's the goal, so at least everyone gets one. Then what happens? Okay, those that want a second one will then get the chance for a second one. Okay, now if there's not enough then for people that do want a lot more, you can just speak one-on-one with Tyler and Daryl and them and speak to the team, and they will see what they can do, for those who are here to get a lot more than 1 or 2. Fair enough? Okay, so your next step will be to select your property. So you select your property. Now you selected your property, your next step would be to what? Well, obviously, when you select your property, what will happen is that then you'll go to the back of the room and you'll speak to whichever supplier your property's with, and they'll give you a contract. Okay, they're going to go through the contracts again in a group, so because if you've got questions, etc., on that beforehand, so you understand they're pretty simple contracts in the US. So you'll get your contract, your purchase agreement, you'll go through that, you select your property, you complete that. Okay, so the terminology in America is, we talk about in Australia an exchange. They don't call it exchange, it's just they say going to contract or whatever. And then we talk about settling. Generally in Australia it's a 30-day settlement, is it right? In America, it's much more flexible. A lot of these properties, because you're cash buyers, those are, most of your cash buyers using cash, use super money or your line of credits. So settlement can be as quick as 7 days. Okay, so a lot of you will be able to physically settle in 7 days. Okay, some of you go, look, I've got to get my line of credit money out and transfer funds. I'm going to need 14 days or 30 days, but most of you will be able to effectively that quickly. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. So we'll go through the rest of that process. Make sense? Okay. So you select your property. So the next step is review your sales agreement, or what do you say, contract. So what they call, when we say we settle on a property, they call it what? Close. So just a different terminology. They call it closing on the contract. So instead of typical 30 days in Australia, they can be done 7, 14, 30 days. It can be done much quicker over here. Okay, so you review your contract. Now, optional is you can use, one of the US lawyers spoke, you can use them or whoever you want, if you want them to review the contract. I say that's optional because a lot of times when I'm buying in the US is because the contract's very simple. They're not like a thick contract like that. But even in Australia, they're fairly standardised contracts anyhow. It's just a standard, typical real estate contract. Not much, is really, if it's a typical standard one from the government sites, then it's no big deal. In the US, they're much simpler contracts, you'll notice. Like, especially some of you, I think you got a copy of one of the contracts. Went through, they're pretty straightforward, they're pretty standard. You're basically buying a property, okay? But what you're going to use, that is optional if you want to. A lot of times I don't bother because I can read the contract, I know what it is. Then what the most important thing is though, there's some things are optionals and some things are musts, okay? The must is obviously then you've got to have titles, title company. True? Now is a title company a must, yes or no? Yes, it's a must. And it's also there so they can check. They're going to be also checking as I went through when you resolution titles if you want to use them. So you don't. That can all be arranged as part of turnkey service for you. So you don't have to wait to get back home and oh shit, who do I have to contact? Oh, resolution titles or whoever. I've got to then ring them or email them and then wait for them to get back to me, etc. So that can be all sped up. Team, as far as payment to the title company, do we know, Ben? With payment to the title company, do they just do that at closing?
That'll all happen at closing.
At closing, yep.
It'll all happen at closing.
Okay, so you don't have to prepay any of that. So that makes it simpler. Okay, so that'll be all, the title company will be arranged for you. If you want to use Resolution's title, if you want to use a different title company, well then you just have to organise whatever title company you want to use in America. Okay, there's plenty of them. Obviously part of their working for you to check for tax liens and all that sort of stuff. So that's where you're having your duty of care done, doing all that for you. So you've got an unencumbered property, the property's checked, all those things are done. Some of the horror stories, obviously you'll hear in the US, is where people bought a property and still got a tax lien on it and all that sort of stuff. So that ensures it doesn't happen. Okay, so that's important. What next? Okay, so you've reviewed the contract. Obviously in here you'd also sign the contract when you're ready. Forgot that part. $2,500. The deposit is generally $2,500. So to put that in. So how will you pay the deposit? What they will do with the contract, they'll give you also a form, a wiring instruction form. So you'll have the contract to go through, sign. You'll have your wiring instruction form. That's just where you would wire the money for the deposit. Okay, some of you are able and just going to close fairly quickly, like in 7 days. You might just wire do the whole lot at once. Okay, if it's been done that quickly rather than 2.5 and then the balance, a few days later. You might just do it all at once. Is there any questions on that part? Yep.
Is the deposit the same regardless of the deposit?
Yeah. We got them just to keep it simple, a lower fee, just 2.5 on all the properties. It's fairly standard. Makes it easy for you. Like in Australia, you normally pay 10%. We're going to just do it 2.5. Okay. So, some of you can be wiring that money. Already your bank account's open. You can be wiring money to your Wells Fargo bank account now, or you can wire the money straight for the deposit, even while you're here, before you leave, if you want. Title company. What else after that? What else do you have to do? Yes. Now, is the building inspection optional or a must? Absolute must. So don't cut corners in certain areas. Absolute must. So that would be a very big must. Okay? So what they'll do is if you want to use, what was his name? Is it Joe? If you want to use Joe, they'll get all that organised for Joe to get out to your properties as soon as possible. So you don't have to be emailing Joe when you get back. It'll be done for you. So they'll get that underway before you leave. Payment details for Joe, we're going to get that for them.
Yeah, he'd be an individual.
Paper. Yep.
He wouldn't happen at closing. He would
Yeah, so if we can get a form from Joe, we can hand out so you can organise your payment to him. See if he takes credit card, it'd make it a hell of a lot easier.
He does.
PayPal, you said, yeah? Yeah. Okay, so everyone's comfortable with that. You're using Joe, so that way you don't have to wait to get back and get it sorted. You can get it underway while you're here, and you can pay him his fee. So we'll get a form. If we can get a form team off Joe that we can hand out, how they can, payment instructions, how much it is. Did he go through the prices with you?
Yeah.
How much was it? Okay. So from 280. Okay, so 280. Yep. So you got that. Everyone's. Is this making it easier for everyone to get all the where am I? What I got to do, etc. Okay, so we're getting that done. The main things in a building inspection report, I'm not worried about minor things. All I'm worried about is major structural problems. Okay, that's the main issue. If there's a major structural problem, then that's a problem. Okay, any building inspector is going to have minor things, but it's the major things that you're worried about. Yep.
That's just a question. You put the building inspection after signing the contract. So, like you said, you're worried about major structural problems.
Yeah,
I take it.
Yeah.
The contract is going to be subject to inspection or not?
Yeah, we can just do the subject to inspection report, the contract. How do you normally do them? Because okay, so we're saying here, because I've got here signing the contract here and I've got the building inspector over here. So contracts subject to building inspecting report.
That's already included in the language. If you see in the contract,
it's already in the contract.
Towards the bottom of the first page. But yeah, you do have a building inspection clause in your contract, so it's not something that we have to add to it.
Okay, that's good. Who's happy with that? Yep. That way we don't have to change the order then. Yep, fire away over here just to get a mic.
With the title company, if they come back with something that's not so good, is there something in the contract to say that you don't have to move forward?
There's probably a lot of questions that we should field maybe as we're up there, but certainly I think the answer is if there's a problem on the inspection, what's the remedy for it and this and that?
On the title. So the question is, the titles, if there's an issue comes up with the titles, is there a clause in the contract that, you know?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. If there's something to where we can't sell the property for whatever reason, or there's a lien, or there's a judgment, or for whatever reason we're unable to deliver and perform on our end, then no, you're not liable to close. You're not held to this agreement that we can't perform on. So both parties have to perform in order for this thing to move forward.
Yep.
Okay, and you get the deposit back, I guess. Yep.
Yep. You get your deposit back. Yep.
So just on that same tract, the contract in section 11 does talk about the inspection report, and it says the seller is selling as is and will do minor repairs. So if the building inspection comes back and says there's a major structural problem, what's the remedy?
Well, you
don't have a... the remedy is typically we'll work with you to come to a resolution. If there's not unable to be a resolution between us, no harm, no foul. We part as friends. You get your money back. We'll take our property. Yeah. Right. Yes.
The only time you would lose a deposit would be if you. How many days is it? 7 days in Arizona. What's the cooling off period on a contract? Is there a standard cooling off period?
It's not. It's in the contract is where we'll dictate that.
Yep.
We'll dictate an inspection period or a due diligence period or cooling off period, I think is what it's referred to here. Typically it's 10 days is how we do it. I think we talked about stretching it to 14 days just to have enough time for some of the funding issues and things. So
yep.
Yeah, so 14 days is what that is. I'm not sure what the typical cooling off period is for Australia, but...
What is in Australia? It changes different states. I think it's 5 days or something. Depends on the state.
But the cooling off period has a different legal meaning in most Australian states. That's not to do with building inspection or not to do with finance or anything else. That's I've cooled off and I've changed my mind.
Yeah, typical cooling off period in Australia means that you have basically, say it's 5 day cooling off period in Australia, you have 5 days to change your mind, so you're not bound to it. But after 5 days in Australia, other than, if there's other clauses in there that protect you for, building inspector report, etc., it would be, then you would lose your deposit.
Okay, so we're talking here, there is a cooling off period. I've now gotten cold feet 2 days later, I can have my deposit back,
Yep.
even though the building's fine.
So Ben, are we saying it's 14 days? We're extending it to 14 days, cooling off. So what they're saying in Australia, you can have a cooling off period that, like in Australia, let's say it's a 5-day cooling off period in a contract in Australia. That means in that 5 days you can change your mind and just walk away from the contract.
Okay, my misunderstanding. No, what I'm saying is that there's an inspection due diligence period where if there's an issue that arises that it's like, hey, you said this thing was tenanted and it's not, or you said there was a roof on it and there is no roof. These types of things. If there's an issue at that point, that's where this due diligence comes in a period to say, okay, I need to verify that what you're telling me is what it actually is. This cooling off period, I guess from what I'm just understanding and picking up is you sort of have a, yeah, I said I would do this, and here's my money and my signature and all this, but I kind of changed my mind sometime between now and the next few days. We don't have that here. Once you sign and the money's, once the contract is binding, it's binding. Now, it's not like I said, the inspection period, if there's an issue, you have an out. Just to change your mind, no, that's not. We don't have that.
So what it effectively would be the time you transfer your money. So you sign your contracts and then you take 2 days or 3 days to transfer your deposit. Effectively, that's once you transfer your deposit, you're binding.
Contract is binding.
Other than the building inspectors and the clauses that cover you from there. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
So if somebody's saying, I want a 5-day cooling off period, just transfer your deposit in 5 days. Yeah. Okay.
Now I was going to say that also. You run the risk that we're going to be bugging you. Our title company is actually the one that'll be saying, hey, I have a contract and no money. I have a contract and no money. I have a contract and no money. This contract is not yet valid until we get money. You understand? Until the title company gets money. So the contract, the earnest deposit, it's called consideration. It actually what makes the contract valid. It actually what gives it life.
Yep.
You're saying under Arizona law, until consideration is received, the contract isn't binding?
That's just contractual law. Period.
Australian contract law, the fact whether if consideration has been promised, the contract is binding.
Yeah,
It's binding on the signature, not the receipt of consideration.
Right. No, the contract has to be. One of the things in the contract, along with a signature that requires it, is that earnest money deposit to make the contract valid. So the contract's not. It's really nothing until money has exchanged hands. At least some.
So in Australia, what you're saying is true in some cases. Yeah, it depends what sort of contract. There can be contracts like a commercial lease contract. There always issues might be, is it binding when you sign it or is it binding when you pay the actual, it's binding, technically it's binding when you sign it, but even generally, if people haven't paid the deposit, it's very hard to bind them. But yeah, so it makes sense to everyone. Now the other issue though is also some of the stock, is going quick. So they're gonna, pretty much, you pretty much know if you're going to select a property, you're selecting a property, you've got your outs for your building inspector report, etc. So you pretty much know that because they've got to be able to hold the stock.
Right. Now let me follow with this. We don't have a quote unquote cooling off period, but typically from contract to the time the title company receives that earnest deposit, typically we give 3 days. Now normally it happens like that. It's 24 hours or less. You sign and the money comes. But there is typically a 3-day period in there that says, hey, if we don't have your money by 3 days, we're going to be following up to see why, and we need to figure out why that is. But so yeah, kind of 3 days is the general. And once I've started thinking about what it is that you're referring to and cooling off, that's kind of what it is.
Yep.
3 days.
Is everyone okay with that? Makes sense. Yep. Okay. What? Another question? Is this good? Getting all the questions out of the way? Yep.
The contract we were given, item 10, closing, says 30 days.
Oh, that would mean settling, closing in 30 days. Is that true?
Okay, so that's separate from the 14.
Okay, I think, Ben, she's saying in the contract it's talking about 30 days, which obviously it's referring to the closing. Is that the contract from Ben, that one, Ben and Tyler? Yep. So she's asking the question, Ree, you talked about 14 days of building inspections, etc.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. What number? What's the paragraph number that we're referring to? 10? Right. Yeah. So the question is where the 30 days plays into that, what that means, or okay. we'll put a closing date in there. It'll be 14 days out from contract. We'll put in the blank spot before 2011 will be a closing date. As promptly as practical, an additional period of 30 days shall be allowed for closing to accommodate delays in title work or the correction of title defects. Basically what that says is the title company is going to pull that report like Aaron was talking about, and it's going to show whether or not this thing is free and clear, whether or not it's got liens, if there's a judgment on it, whatever it might be. All that 30 days says is that we have 30 additional days to make it right, whatever it might be, whether with clean up the title, if there's a judgment somewhere, if there's a divorce decree and somebody needs a signature in order to make this thing, that's what that is. That's 30 days to clean up any BS that might be lagging from title work. Excuse my, I don't know if you guys know what that means.
Yeah, so in Australia, you notice that, like, you've got to, let's say you've got 30 days in Australia, you have to close or settle on a contract. It'll also say after that, if you don't settle in this time, you have an extra 14 days generally, but otherwise then you'll be charged penalties or your contract can be cancelled. Does that make sense? So that's saying, okay, generally you'll be working, date will be in 14 days to close, but you've got that 30 days, because sometimes the title, there might be delays in building inspecting report, the titles might be delayed or issues, so then they're not going to cancel the contract on you, they've got an extra time to get that done. Make sense? And
then on top of that, everything on this contract is an agreement between two people or two entities. We can extend this and do whatever we want to it. We're not if it's after 30 days. I heard you mention something about penalties or fees. If there's no fees if it's not after 30 days. We can extend it if we want. If you agree to extend it and I'd agree to extend it, we just extended it.
Yeah.
If we don't, if you want to extend it and I don't, well then we just don't. If the other way around, if I want to extend it and you don't, well we don't. We both have to agree, but we can extend it past that if needed.
Yep. Okay. So it's much simpler. Yeah, tell me go.
So just further to that then, Ben, so those of us that have just set up like a self-managed super fund, will be waiting for funds to roll over into that in order to purchase the property. Can we have a 2-month closing period in order for that to happen?
What I would suggest.
Yeah. So one thing I suggest before Ben goes on that, when you're buying the properties, okay, if you're a cash buyer, you got the cash, okay, the properties will be priority to those who have cash. If you say, look, I've got cash coming, it's going to take a week to get it transfer it over, whatever, so you got cash coming. If you've got super funds set up and you can just write a check already, okay, that's different. If you've got super fund waiting to be set up, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. You just certainly need to let Ben and Daryl them know that up front, that, hey, I'm going into this, but it's going to take estimated X amount of time for that money to be here. At least then they know, okay?
And then at that point, it's a matter of, us again, it's an agreement between two people, right? Do we want to agree to this or do we not? Or is there maybe a better arrangement which might be, hey, listen, this property right here is probably going to be gone, but in a month or 2 or 60 or 90 days, whenever you're ready, let's look at another property. We will have them at, the same house you're looking at here, or the same type of house, it'll be ready for you too. So there's not...
so that'll have to be a one-on-one discussion with the suppliers, because in some cases they can't hold certain properties that long, okay, because they're going to go, okay, because they have other people after the properties, they can't. Some they can hold a little bit longer. You have to ask them if they can. Others they just can't. Yeah.
But again, we can replace it down the line. It's not. Obviously, yes, you do. If you got the house, you want it, this is the one you want, great, let's move quickly if we can. If we can't, it's not like you're completely out of luck. Okay, let's just touch base when you are ready, right?
Yep. Yeah. Very good. No more questions? Okay. Okay, what's next on a checklist? Is it better you writing your own checklist? At least then it's sinking in, rather than just give you a handout. It's also because I haven't created the checklist on a handout as well. So I'm into delegation. Because I thought this would be an easy way for everyone to get through the thing as your own checklist. Okay, what else? Where are we up to? So pretty much next one is pretty simple. So ultimately what you want to have done before you leave is all this done, building inspection's underway. So, and that's assuming that's all sorted, comes back fine. Your next step is pretty simple when you're in Australia, is just transfer the balance of funds to close. That's pretty much your last step, or almost your last step, because after that you get... Oh yeah, insurance. Yep, very good. So add in insurance. Organise. Okay, just on that, with insurance team, everyone was handed out an insurance contact. What are we doing there? We're just letting them organise their own insurance directly. You pretty much know. You're pretty much going to have to do that yourself, aren't you? Yeah, through that lady. Yeah, there's not much more we can do there other than here's your insurance person. You're gonna have to. Yep. Is everyone okay with that? You contact your insurance person and she'll take care of that for you. Yep. Okay. Yep. Ben, when would you recommend? Before close, or at close, or before close?
Settlement. Yeah. The latter one, that we can wait until closing to have that. We'll have to have it ready at the time of we close, but during the time of contract to settlement is when we would organize the insurance. Right. Did you say the risk? I'm sorry. Yes. The risk is
the risk on something. If something happens to the property before closing, it's the vendor, the seller's
Sure. Yeah. No, you're definitely not on the hook until it's yours. If that's your question.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense.
Right.
So that's why you got to have insurance before closing, or definitely by closing, because once you close, it's now your problem. Like if someone smashes your property. Yeah. Yep. Yep. I'll just go to the back first.
At what point should we be engaging the property management? I mean, I assume some of they're already tenanted, so they'll already have property management.
Very good. Yeah, that's the next step. That's the last step, okay? Well, it's going to be already done, but yep, good question. So you got insurance, and then we close, right? Is there anything else before closing you can think of?
When would you change it to the LLC?
Doesn't matter. You can do that after closing as well. Does it make sense? You can change your LLC even after closing. Not like in Australia, it's like, oh my God, double stamp duty. Okay, so even then. If you've got your LLC set up, some of you, if you haven't set your LLC up through these guys already, and you're getting that set up next week or something, and if it comes through, you can put it on before or after. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we're now closing. So Ben, closing at that point, if they've done everything by then, they're just going to be transferring the balance of funds to the title company.
Yes.
Yep. So, and there'll be wiring instructions will be, they already have, yeah.
Same wiring instructions for the deposit will also be used for the final funding.
Okay, so everyone's clear, you know where to transfer the balance of your funds to close. It'll go to the wiring instructions details that you'll get with your contract. You get a contract and a form with wiring instructions. So it's going to the title company. You deposit and the close, and the title company takes care of it from there. Pretty much, so ultimately, all they have to do when they're back to Australia, they've got everything done beforehand, is you just transfer the money. Okay. So obviously, after the building inspection report and all that's gone through fine, and the titles, yep. Then we're going to add in property management. Okay. So then normally you'd have to get a tenant, but in this case, already tenanted. So property manager. So all these properties already, property managers are in place. Either way, with the condos are already there. You saw that yesterday. Tenants are in place. As far as ongoing contact with the property manager, you already have those details for tilers. You have the detail. And some of the property managers will be slightly different, won't they, in some of the properties?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They won't all be real property management. Was the team that was here. They won't all be that one company.
Yeah. Okay. So Annette will obviously be aware of this as well. So what will happen is, obviously, you guys with the property manager will put them in touch who the exact property manager is.
Right, right. Yep. And then a part of that will be, due diligence period after you go under contract. We'll certainly interface with the property management company at that time.
Yep.
Yep.
Then what will happen, property managers will put your rentals into your Wells Fargo bank account. And then if you want to transfer some of those monies back to Australia or New Zealand, you know how to do that, or will, just speak to Wells Fargo. Is there anything else? Ben, can you think of it? That's pretty much your deal is done and rented, and you have achieved your outcome.
Have a beer?
What's that? Yeah, then you go to Las Vegas.
Hey, you guys have a lot of information being shared. I guarantee you this process, if you've ever bought a house in Australia, the first time you buy one here, you're going to be like, is that it? Well, what else am I saying? Isn't there? Don't I have to jump through red tape? Don't I have to? No, you don't. You and I were selling something, you're buying something, and it's kind of how it is. Real easy. Not as much red tape, I think, as what you're used to.
So, team at the back, can we get this typed up today? Is that a definite yes? Yep. I like the nice boxes as well, so they can be ticked. Okay, so you already have it, but just so we have it for back in Australia as well, so for future people. First of all, give yourselves a big hand. Basically, completed the process. Who said I wasn't detailed? Okay, let's take a couple of final questions. We'll just, the mics down the front here. We'll take a couple of questions here.
Would you suggest when we do transfer our money, put it into our credit card account, or just put it into the savings account?
With Wells Fargo?
Yeah. Did you know how we're trying to build up a credibility with a bank? Put it into a credit card?
No, I think you just put it to your Wells Fargo a bank account. Yeah. Just wait. We'll just take one here first. Yeah.
Okay, so Netta and the team back home.
Yep.
Which parts of that process are we liaising with them to do?
Okay, so let's go through that. It's a good question. So let's go through it. Okay, you've done this part. Let's just start ticking the ones you've already done. You open your bank account. Most of you got your LLCs being set up, so you put your forms in for that. Some of you getting your self-managed super funds set up at the moment, structures. Most of you got set up or getting set up. Look at property. Well, you looked at some yesterday, and we're going to look at some more after morning tea. So you're going to be doing that, and you're going through your criteria. Then you're going to select your property, and then hopefully you get the properties that are still available that you want. Then you're going to go to the back room and get your contract. You already have the contract, and they're going to go through the contract again for you. So if there's any more questions on the contract, you have that covered. So you can review the contract. Then if you're happy, you sign the contract, okay? And then you're going to have wire instructions to transfer either while you're here or when you get back to Australia, you deposit. And knowing that you've got an out as far as building inspecting, etc., if that doesn't come through. Optional if you want to use US lawyers to check the contract. I say it's optional because most of you can read a contract, it's up to you. And if you need that, then you've got the contact has handed out. He spoke here. Title company, this will be sorted for you before you go, so the title companies will be onto that, so you don't have to speak to them. That'll be underway, and they get paid when? At closing, so you don't have to transfer any money to them. Okay, so that part's sorted. Building inspector, Joe's going to be sorted for you guys. So before you go, he'll get out there and start doing all those things. But you're going to have to pay him. So we're going to have a form handed out when, team?
We'll have the form this evening, so either hand it out this evening or
tomorrow. Yep. Okay, so then that way you can pay him, so you don't have delays there. So everyone clear on that? 280 upwards. He's got PayPal. So some of you don't know how to use PayPal, like me. Okay. Anyhow, so everyone clear on that? So there's something you have to do. It's one thing here. You have to actually pay for the building inspector report. So I would suggest get that sorted before you leave. So you just want to be going back and say, I've achieved my outcome, it's done. So you have to be getting back, you get busy, jet lagged. Shit, what did I have to do? Oh, PayPal, how does that work? You go into procrastination. I'm busy, you're like, who's going to do it for me? You just don't want those headaches. So that way, because otherwise you're going to delay and it's not going to happen. Insurance, okay, there is something you have to do. You have to organise your insurance. So I would suggest get that underway while you're here. Just get it done. So you got the contacts. To make that easier, guys, would it be worth getting the insurance lady to come Tuesday or something when we're here Tuesday for people to get their insurance underway? Would that make it easy for everyone?
We'll have tomorrow Janelle, the insurance agent that was here. She'll be here tomorrow most of the day to help answer questions. If you got your property address and things like that, she's bringing a mobile office. She'll be ready to do business. I mean, she told me she's going to have a printer and things going, so you can get at least the ball rolling with her, assuming you know your property, it's been selected, and all that. So, yeah.
Very good. That makes it easy for you. Yep. Demetrius, yeah.
Speaking of insurance, condos, regarding the insurance on condos, the HOA usually covers most of the contents, where the exterior and the plumbing and that kind of thing, so it won't necessarily be. The HOA covers everything except the appliances, so you don't really have an insurance expense for the condos.
Okay, that's great. It's a bonus for you. We have forgotten one thing, which I'll talk about after lunch, is advocacy fees. Okay, but I'll cover that when we come back in after lunch, because I've spoken to the team to do some deals for you on the advocacy fees. Yep, question down the front.
What about things like rates and paying the water? Back home, when I've got rentals, I've got to pay rates and the water bill.
The rates and water bills team, they will be sent to, I imagine, okay, is some of the utilities included in condos? Yes. Like rates, obviously the water, utilities, stuff like that?
The HOA pays for the water, the tenants pay for the electricity, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But what a single house?
Again, a single house with rates.
Tenants pay all utilities.
Tenants pay the utilities, yeah. With the rates, what's your terminology? You have rates?
Taxes on the property taxes? Oh, okay. Well, over here they're called property taxes, and they're just varied per property. Here they're anywhere from, say, depending on if it's a condo or a large house, it's based on the value. Okay, the county will come out and assess a value on that property, and there's a percentage of that value that they charge you for tax. Here on these houses here, you're going to see anywhere from $500 to up to maybe even $1,500 per year that the tax rate's going to be. Is that?
It would be mailed to their LLC address, won't it?
Oh yeah, yes. Yes, I'm not sure I'm not sure the question, I guess.
Yeah, so basically in Australia, saying your rates notice, which is property tax notice, is going to be mailed to the LLC, which you guys will then have it forwarded onto them. Yes.
Yes.
Makes sense?
Let me follow up on that.
How do they pay that? They'll just have to wire funds, won't they? Be just wiring funds. Oh no, can the property managers handle that?
Yeah, the property managers can handle that for you. They can hold some money back. They call it escrow, is what's called over here. They can hold some money back in escrow and pay that for you. They can, okay? They don't. That's not necessarily that they will. So don't assume that they will or that it's just taken care of. If you get a notice, which will be forwarded to you, okay, at your LLC address, it'll be forwarded to you. Then it's your responsibility to make sure those are paid. So get with the property management company. Follow up at that point, okay? Does that make sense? Okay.
Very good. Okay, jot this one in there. You got to put in here is your advocacy fees. I'll go through that after, just straight after lunch. Where were we up to with questions? Is there any more questions?
With Anetta and the team, which parts of this process can you
Okay, so the difference is, okay, that's where we're up to. So building inspector's done here, insurance you're doing yourself, but you can do that Monday, so that's done. Then you transfer the funds, closing, property manager. So as far as that, if you're just in Australia and you weren't here, you'd be dealing with Anetta's team doing a lot of this for you via her. Because you're here, 99% of it should be done, so you don't have to harass Anetta's team, okay? You will then use Anetta's team ongoing, and which will go through Tuesday for additional properties. Okay, you'll email and they'll have the list. You actually have to go onto the website. There'll be a list and it'll be updated continually of additional properties that come through. And then you'll go through the cycle, but a lot of it's already done, remember. You'll simply look at property, select your property, you just email and say, I want this one. Once again, they have to check whether it's still available, okay? And they'll coordinate and send you the contract, okay? And you just start going through that and you send it all back to them and they'll facilitate it that way. Make sense? Okay. With this one, it's all here. You're getting, that's why I'm like getting everything done while you're here, so you're getting the outcome. Okay. Make sense? It's actually much simpler when you go through it all. Yeah. It's, geez, I'm glad we wrote it down. Good idea, that one. Yeah. Okay, so no final questions. We're going to go for a small morning tea break in a moment. It'll be 10 minutes. 25 minutes? 10, 15 minutes that meant. Okay. I'm just checking my notes whether there's anything else I had to cover before. Oh, I do. Finance. Probably not important. Other than that, my God, we've covered a lot. Okay, I'll touch on finance, then we'll have a 15-minute break, then we're going to come back in, then we're going to showcase the properties, 50 properties we go through. You're going to rank them in order. Some of you go, thank God, about time. And then we're going to have lunch. After lunch, and you're going to come back through, and then we're going to go through the ranking, what ranking you're in, okay, from when you enrolled and the level of membership in order of priority. And you'll be able to, that way the people at the top of the list get first priority. Okay, obviously, you pick out your property one by one, and we'll go through so at least everyone gets at least a chance. And then those who want a second or third one, if there's any left, you can try and get that. Finance. So here's the situation with finance. I'll cover that after lunch. Yeah. Okay, so finance. The deal is this. What we're working on, we basically, there's two potential suppliers, but I do not want you to get excited because they're not proven as far as ability. A lot of times in the US, people say they can get finance, and it doesn't often happen because, one, it's incredibly difficult. Okay. And often, or sometimes it just takes forever and then you just give up. So what we're going to do is, I know a lot of you guys would like finance, even if you got cash, to buy your first one so you can buy a second and third one anyhow. So what we will make available is we need 5 guinea pigs. So, and to be a guinea pig, here's what we're going to do. So 5 guinea pigs mean we're just going to, 5 people that particularly want finance, you can be selected, and we'll put an application in and put them, some with one supplier, some with the other supplier. And when I say guinea pig, it's just to see if they can get finance, okay? If their finance comes through, then if the finance works and they can get finance, who would like to be let know in the next few weeks about the finance options? Pretty much everyone. So we won't get you to put your name down. We'll basically, if it works, so for additional properties, okay, if it works, we'll let you know about it and send you the application. Say, if you want to buy additional properties, here's the finance. Here was the results. We put 5 people through and 3 people got their finance. So, it is for real. But I want to say we want to test it because we don't want anyone to get excited. Oh, I'm just going to wait for finance, and it doesn't happen. Okay, so with the guinea pigs, I'm going to suggest, to be fair, is go speak to Garo about this, okay? If you want to be one of the 5, it'll be for the people that, the ones that you can buy at least a property with cash, super, line of credit, etc. Leave it for the ones that, the 5 can be the ones, particularly if you want, that necessarily can't get a property unless they get finance. So let them try and get finance as the guinea pigs, and we'll see how that goes. Fair enough, okay? And if that works, then of course we'll let you know about it, okay? But we just don't want to waste time and go, it doesn't work with those. We'll continue to work with different suppliers and chase up different land. We're doing that all the time, but we just want to test that. Okay, fair enough. Questions?
In the past, with private funding, what's the range?
Interest rates, yep. If it goes through, we're looking at about, I think, 12%. Is that correct? About 12%, if we get it. Okay, but do not get excited. Okay, unless it's definite done, proved. Yep, Ben.
So what was the LVR in that with the 12% if we get it?
I think we're looking at 65.
Yep, great.
About 65 is pretty good.
And secondly,
3-year interest.
Yep. Secondly, in Australia, like I just learned this from Conrad, like with Vita Advantage in your credit file, if you get rejected on a credit application, it doesn't look good. So over here, is there a similar...
This is hard money, isn't it? This is not going through the banking system. This is hard money, so it doesn't affect
Who's going through if it's not going through the banking system?
Yeah, hard money. Hard money means private money.
Okay.
Because banks, you can't get it through the banks at the moment. So it's hard money. That's why it's hard to get, because it's hard money.
So that won't adversely affect your credit rating over here?
It's the mafia money from Las Vegas, okay? That's very hard money, okay? Yeah. No, it's hard because you're foreign in another country, so private investors, do they really want to loan money? And also when it's hard because, let's say, some wealthy people that do this as a business might lend out money. Let's say they say, I've got $10 million, let's lend it out and make some money on it. If they've got $10 million, it goes like that. It doesn't service many loans, many applications, it's gone. So some people might, I've been getting, some suppliers say, I've been getting finance for some people. Yeah, that's 1 week, and then it's all gone. There's no more for anyone else. So that's one of the reasons why it's hard. Okay, yep. No.
Like non-recourse. So hypothetically, if we're in Australia, we no longer want to pay. Will that loan be non-recourse? So if we want to walk away from it, can we?
Do you know, Tyler can answer that one.
I'll answer the financing question. We have two financing options. Both of them are hard money. Both of them are hard money type financing. They don't go through the banking system, which Jamie just said. But here's the problem. You guys don't have social security numbers. This is why it's infinitely hard for you guys to get financed through normal channels in America. You don't have a social security number. I can't pull your credit. 1. 2, it's almost impossible for Americans to get financed right now. So they're not really readily financing Americans, let alone somebody who lives halfway across the world. So we have to go through the hard money channels. You will have to sign a promissory note, basically, with your name on it. But guess what? You don't have a social security number. How's anybody ever going to come after you? I mean, how does that happen? Where's the recourse? What are they going to do? I'm just saying. That's
so the recourse will only be over the property.
That's it. But they have a lien against your property. Other than that, they can never come after you.
Yeah, so it's secured over your property. Then if you money, so if you don't pay, they'll just take your property.
I'm just thinking from the other side of the coin. I'm just thinking on the other side of the coin. If you've got a heap of money, and why wouldn't you put your money into buying property rather than getting 12% interest?
Exactly. Most do. Very few do. Some people are into lending as a side project. That's why it's hard to get, because not many people would do it.
Yeah.
And it's liquid.
Yep. That's why. All they do is only limited amount of funds, because they're not a bank. A bank can have $10 million and then loan out $200 million. Private investor has $10 million want to loan out. That's all they can loan out. They can't do the multiple fractional reserve banking. So does that make sense? Now, some of you want to get a property, but you worry about finance. Remember, the cheapest properties are how much? $31,000. So some of you, if you don't have as much cash available, $31,000 is your starting point. So even if you can't get finance a lot, you might be able to be creative and see how you can come up with that. Obviously, many of you are working with Goro, so those that have been applying through Goro, you'll have some answers back by about 5 p.m. today.
I'll have answers back for half you by 5 p.m, the latest by midnight. So please, whoever's applied for finance with me, come see me during the morning tea break, and I'll discuss with you what we're doing now.
Yeah, so in this morning tea break, speak to Goro about that, those that are depending on finance, because after lunch when you start, you'd be selecting your property and somebody go, well, if you're waiting on finance, you don't know yet, that can be a bit of an issue. So we will do our best to look after you. Obviously, the cash buyers in the room have priority on the properties. Your cash line of credit, your self-managed super fund money that's available already, you have the priorities on the property because they can't necessarily hold some properties. But others of you know you can buy at least one property and waiting for Goro to maybe get approved to get a second property, or if you're waiting for Goro to be able to get a property, okay, well then you're going to know later today. So we will see what we can do to keep maybe some property aside for you, tomorrow or something, so at least there's something left. Okay. Any final questions? All right, we have done. So give yourselves a big hand. A lot simpler now, isn't it? I'm going to go by the pool. So now you're going to have 15-minute break. See Goro if you need to see Goro. Ask more questions to suppliers. When we come back in, it is show me the property time. Okay? Enjoy, 15-minute break.